Right, I think we shall make a start. So as I said, we're using the Miro link, the Miro board to do our retrospective today. The link for that is in the chat, so if you click on that it should take you to where we are. I'm also going to just share my screen for those that aren't on the Miro link for whatever reason. Voila, that should be on its way. So this is part 3 of 3, the final of the Agile Manifesto Retrospective Chronicles as part of the Agile 20 Reflect Festival. So the first week we did the past, last week was the present, and today is all about the future. So in terms of our outcomes sought from today, we want to delve into the future. We want to think about how the Agile Manifesto will serve us in the future. We want to envisage the successes Agile will help to bring to our working lives, to the Agile community, to ourselves perhaps. We want to futurespect as an Agile community, not just as a team, a project or organisation. And lastly, we want to see if we can derive some community-driven insights and lessons shared. If anyone wants to make use of this Back to the Futurespective template, the Miro template is available for free to download on my website, so you can feel free to use that with the teams or companies you work with. Now, for anyone that isn't familiar with Miro, just a couple of details there. There's a button at the top of your screen. I keep saying Miro. The button at the top of your screen allows you to hide collaborators' cursors. There's a nice undo button here at the top if you do something by mistake. But for the most part, we're going to be using these stickies. So to use them, you just need to double click inside one of the post-its, the virtual post-its, and you can then type, interact, and share. We'll be using a mixture of the stickies and conversation to do our Futurespective today. So, over to the Futurespective. I always start any retrospective or Futurespective with reciting the retrospective prime objective, which I know for those uninitiated, those unfamiliar, does sound like it's something from Star Trek, but it basically says, regardless of what we discover, we truly understand and believe that everyone did the best job they could, given what they knew at the time, their skills and abilities, the resources available, and the situation at hand. And I feel that's a great way of getting people into the unconditional positive regard mindset. This isn't about blame. We don't care if there's someone in the community that does some things you don't like, if there's particular companies out there that perhaps aren't to your taste, that's fine. We don't mind. We're just trying to think about how Agile will serve us in the future. So we've got four Agile questions that are future looking today. And the first thing we need to do is pick a time frame. So if we're thinking of the future, what time frame feels like a good time? If we think back to the movie Back to the Future, they set on this lovely dial here the time frame, and I know 5 years ago or so was the time frame they'd set into the future. What time frame do we think? We're thinking 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? What do you guys think? How far forward do we look?
Don't know, 15 years. I think this is quite forward the way the speed of things are going.
15 years, okay. Any other thoughts?
Well, we should just go for another 20.
Another 20? So 20 behind, 20 forwards? How do you feel about that? It kind of feels symmetrical. 20 the past, 20 forwards. Alright, let's go with that. So our time frame is a nice 20 years. Feels round, it feels even that way. I'm going to type that in there. 20 years into the future.
Maybe we really want that hoverboard.
Sorry?
Hoverboards are flying cars.
I would love it if we did have a hoverboard and flying car. I know those Nike lace-up, those automatic lace-up shoes exist. They're very expensive. Yeah, very expensive.
No way.
Yeah, I'll share a link later.
Yeah, please do that.
Yeah, they're kind of one of those novelty ones. I think there was a video going around a while ago where like a guy dressed as like an elderly gentleman and brought them into a high-end store and was trying to kind of sell them and seeing what the response would be and seeing if they would try and rip him off or anything like that, because they are genuinely worth thousands and thousands. And he was playing as if, oh, my son didn't want these, I just want to return them, and so on and so forth. And you actually swear, a lot of the guys were saying, look, these are worth a lot of money. Don't just be carrying around these in the street because people could So they were quite good to him.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really good to hear.
Yeah. All right. So our first question, we've got a nice little image here of Save the Clock Tower, which is again from the film. So let's just imagine 20 years from now, what would a newspaper or equivalent, what would a news article, a blog, something like that, what would that say about the Agile Manifesto then? So what would the headline be? What might the success story say? So drift your mind now 20 years in the future. The year is 2041. The pandemic is hopefully long gone in our memories. It might be something that gives us PTSD when our kids talk about it, or grandchildren for some of us. Maybe me, I'm getting old. Not old. Imagine 20 years in the future, what would the headlines say? What might articles say about the Agile Manifesto? What might blogs say? What would the community say? What would the success stories say? So we're going to give a bit of time. I'm going to set a timer for people to input individually. So this is silent reflection time. Spend some time inputting into these post-it notes what you think those headlines would say, what that success story might say, or not success story. Again, to interact with these post-it notes is just a simple double left click. Make sure that you've got the little cursor icon on the left-hand nav panel selected to enable you to share your thoughts.
Are talking. What about the left-hand panel?
Sorry, on the left-hand panel here, you can see there's a cursor, there's a T for text. The little cursor at the top, if you make sure that's selected, it should highlight in blue when it's selected. That allows you to interact with items on the board, and we're looking for you to interact with these orange post-it notes underneath the heading of what the newspapers say about the Agile Manifesto in our destination time. 20 years in the future. So I can see some people have started to type things down. Got people saying everyone's on board. Granddad remembers what it was like when Agile was just about software. Imagine a scenario where someone says, come sit on my knee, kid, I'm going to talk to you about the Agile Manifesto for software development. What happens to a waterfall? Will a waterfall be a distant memory?
Let's hope so.
I often say waterfall is not a bad thing. It's just, there is no utopian system for any company, right? Waterfall works in a situation where there isn't a lot of change. I often use the example of GDPR, legislative change that's coming in. Everyone knows exactly what it is, a good time frame to deliver it in. You don't necessarily need or aren't required to iterate as frequently because it's very clear scope and that's not changing. That's a good example of something that could be done well in waterfall. Doesn't mean that GDPR change couldn't be delivered in Agile also. Agile still going strong. Realize I forgot to start timer.
I'm being rather dense in updating this.
What's happening for you?
I got an orange post-it, but is everybody hearing my voice echo?
No.
Okay.
Sound fine.
Because I have to put up with it.
It might be all
I've done
your
like on this
speakers,
orange
Chris,
sticky,
if you're
I
recording on one
type in-
device, is getting a
I
feedback.
click the T, I assume.
That's better.
There we go.
But I can't hear you now.
I was just muting myself while others were talking.
All right.
Guys, so Agile's still strong and most popular. Did we scrum it out or Kanban the world? Mindset proves to be king. The business has now bought something.
Yeah, that was me trying.
Let's move this way. The business has now bought in. Okay. All right. Finish up the ones that you're doing, and then what I'm going to get you guys to do is using these little Marty McFly images to the left. I'd like you to vote on the one you think is most likely to happen. So you can grab a little Marty McFly and drag him to the post that you think is most likely to be true in 20 years' time. It's like a dot vote with Marty McFly's cartoonized body.
How many votes are we allowed?
Just let's go two each, since there's a small group here. Nice and intimate.
Likely to happen, or we want to happen?
I think most likely to happen. We can talk about what we most want to happen afterwards. Alright, so a number of votes for mindset. Seems to be the winner so far. 3 votes. Agile still strong and popular with 2. Alright, let's talk about mindset proves to be king then. Who wants to share their thoughts there? Why do we think this is going to be most likely to happen in the future?
Because without buy-in, without having that mindset, it doesn't happen no matter how much people talk about being agile and we're doing this agile and we're running sprints and we're using Kanban boards, but without the sort of mindset, without being comfortable with making mistakes and, learning as you go, you can't do it. So it's the mindset that's most important to start with. So that's why. Yeah.
I think we will learn to be more human, more accepting of people, and I think people will have a greater understanding of what mindset actually is.
This is my motto: people first, guardians of agility. And I've got my little Groot. He reminds me to be people first. It's my little totem. Sits on my desk. I'm a firm believer that we need to be people first. We need to think of people. They're not just avatars behind a screen. They are people. They're humans. They're the beating hearts behind these laptops. Especially now in this COVID world where we're not face to face. We need to make time for that personal interaction. We need to think people as people and not resources. I say that a lot.
I agree. But I think also one of the things that sticks out for me on mindset is we employ really smart people to do a job. And I think in the next 20 years, more and more companies are going to realize that the people on the ground are the ones that you should be asking for your business solutions rather than always from the top down. I think that's going to become more prevalent in the next few years.
I mean, I hope so. When I'm hired in, I usually believe I'm hired in for a purpose because they want my input. They want me to help bring about change, and then there's resistance to change, and you're like, oh well, you brought me in for a reason. I need to challenge things, and if you don't want change, odds are you're still going to be unhappy with the situation in a few months' time. If you don't change your variable, you'll probably be in the same situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I just meant from CEO down, kind of where it's just dictated to everyone what they need to do. The guys on the ground going, okay, you know what, there is actually a better way of doing this. Give us a little bit of leeway. We own it. We take it. And bless you, Miguel. But yes, Chris, they're doing a good job hiring you.
So, okay. Agile still strong and most popular. So do we feel there's not going to be another methodology, framework, mindset out there that takes over? When we went from waterfall, Agile's now become the dominant way of doing things. Is there not going to be another version, or is Agile going to be it?
I'm sure there will be others. I think it will evolve. I don't think it will be known as Agile. I think the name will change to something else to include something that we haven't discovered yet. Possibly, I don't know. Gestalt method's been around quite a while now, but that might have further merit. It might evolve into something a little bit more. I don't know. But I don't think it'll be around the same thing.
Well, it's interesting that Agile is probably at the point where it's now heavily commoditized. Right? If you look at how many training courses there are with the word Agile in the title, there's Agile HR, there's now, I think, 250 plus training courses that are Agile related now. I did the research not long ago. It's a bit of a certification circus out there, and that suggests to me it's become commoditized. Does that mean it's less valuable? If it's done right, probably not. But is it now gotten to the point where it's being monetized too much to the point that it's not delivering the value that it was originally intending to derive?
Kamikaze Agile.
It's also back to the mindset and also scalability, because I work in a big corporation and been trained. I've got myself certified, but, trying to get people to work in an agile way, even if they're delivering software using sprints, they're still not, but we're not putting that into production until October. And, and I work on big programs where they're, you're trying to line up, work done by different systems. So it's, the mindset is the first thing. Yes, a lot of us have been trained in IT, but the senior people aren't on board. They're not willing to make the sacrifices. They still want their PowerPoint presentations. Everybody still wants. Or I have people even in IT say, "But this is the way I work." You try to get them to, let's do requirements gathering this way, and let's not, sign off one big document, and let's
really
do it collaboratively, and let's make it transparent, and let's, be agile with it. And, it's.
I feel like a lot of my role as an agile coach is protecting the teams and being that middle ground between, hey, we need this, the leadership saying we need this, and try to protect teams from the influence or the cause and effect of those decisions in a way that doesn't stop them or doesn't allow them the agility and the autonomy that they want to have. Whenever someone says, "Oh, we want this new metric," I'm like, okay, but why do you want the metric? What purpose is it serving? I'm always wary of metrics in particular because they can be so misused. And there's a great quote: when a metric becomes a target, it ceases to be a good metric. And I find often metrics are used for that purpose, to somehow measure improvement and compare between teams and things like that, and that's dangerous.
Yeah, I have to agree.
I think we need to move on to the next question then. So now we're 20 years in the future. What does success look like for you as a practitioner in our destination time? So 20 years from now, what will you be individually celebrating, and what data will you see that tells you we're on the right path? So again, I'll start time for 3 minutes, input your thoughts individually, and then we'll discuss some of these. So 20 years from now, what are you going to be celebrating?
Retirement.
Perhaps. What success looks like you as an agile practitioner, or as a practitioner using
I know.
methodologies. I love seeing autonomy mentioned multiple times. I'm a big fan of autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Mr. Dan Pink very much underpins a lot of the things I do as an agile coach.
don't know who put more sharing of failures, but that's really nice. I like that.
Yeah, I was just looking at that one and thinking the same thing.
Nice.
That would be me. I'm a huge believer in this. We need to destigmatize failure. It's literally on my LinkedIn profile. And I've often tried to encourage other coaches, other practitioners, hey, share your failures, share your war stories, celebrate them. And even people out there who are in the same industry as me, who are out there with teams saying, hey, we need to fail fast, we need to learn more, seem reluctant to share their failures. So I love for there to be a situation in the future where people are sharing their failures more, celebrating them and seeing them as learning opportunities.
I think you're going to have to start it.
I'll keep pushing for that. I'll keep driving that. I think that's going to be another challenge for me in the next week, is just to do another war story sharing or failure swap shop, I think I called it. Failure swap shop.
Okay.
There's a good acronym for failure that I came across yesterday. So fail stands for...
First attempt at learning something?
Yeah, first attempt at learning. I thought that was really quite good. I know it's not new, but that was very good.
Alright, so same again. Grab your little Marty McFlys. Chuck them on the one, again, this time that you most like to see. If you have one of these, you have 2 votes, but the ones you'd most like to see, that you'd love to see 20 years from now. And I guess the challenge to us is not just to talk about these things, but actually action them. So what will you do tomorrow to try and bring some of these things to life? How will you promote this externally to others you work with and external of your companies? So if we're saying we want more failures, how are you guys going to help bring that to life? I've said I'll do my part to try and bring it to life, but others need to kind of get on board as well, because the more traction we get, the more people will follow as well. All right, so openness. How can we bring about more openness?
I suppose it helps not to be your failure thing, doesn't it? Being not open to a growth mindset and a new experimentation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the Gestalt method of emerging practices and things through experimentation.
I think not enough agile work is framed as an experiment. Yeah, it's even MVP. I find MVP is often understood. MVP is intended to be an experiment. It's what can you learn in this time frame, and often ends up being this gold-plated final solution, ready to go live. Such it's more a learning opportunity than the first version of the product.
I'm going to sign out and sign back in, see if it helps my echoing back.
So sharing of failures. Whilst we're all here, who wants to share a failure? Let's live and breathe what we just talked about. Or I'll just invite or admit Mary back in. Mary, you here? Did that fix it?
I think so.
Good.
No, not when I speak.
It must be when I've got my mic on, so I'll make sure to turn it off as soon as possible.
Because I also get the feedback as well.
Yeah, me too. So I can hear myself through your speakers going back through your mic.
I've turned my volume down. Hopefully that helps.
Don't know. Put your switch your mic on. Hello.
It's on now. Hello. Speak.
Yeah. No, it's good now. It's good now.
Because I had it on so loud. That's why. Right.
Yeah.
There we go. Problem solved. So what we're saying, Mary, is that we were talking about sharing failures. Why don't we live and breathe what we just talked about and share one now?
I will.
I fell off a bike once.
Think of a work-based failure.
So one of the failures that we had it was a traditional sort of waterfall environment, and let me just say right off the bat, I have no issue with waterfall. I think it's just a tool that we can use. But what we did is that we implemented a delivery board, but it started off in the projects department, and we implemented a Kanban board that worked across the different departments. And one of the things that we didn't do was give ownership to the people who were essentially doing the work. So actually using that board, they became very disheartened, very uninterested in the board, because they were like, this isn't our board, we don't control it, we don't have any say in it, so to speak. Even though they did, we didn't really actually work on that. We didn't really kind of go, yeah, it is your board. If you don't want to do this project today, you want to postpone it for a week, you have that right. We didn't actually live the values that we were trying to promote. And that was a massive failing. So,
okay. Frank,
yeah.
have you got to share perhaps? Don't think we've heard
Sure.
You. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, so I worked with some of the more experienced Scrum Masters in my company, and several years back we created a community of practice, and it started off very well, but even after engaging Scrum Masters, some product owners, definitely team members, on occasion on joining the practice, community of practice to attend meetings with outside speakers or to discuss impediments or issues with their teams, several years later we were still in the same spot. There weren't that many more teams going to Scrum. But we were able to get finally some management support to help and reorganize things. But now we're at the other extreme where now the whole org has to be Scrum, only Scrum. All teams change to Scrum. And while I was working with those teams and getting their feedback for like retrospectives to improve their current teams and trying to see what we could do to simplify our processes or add some other agile practices to try different things, pretty much management says, oh, you stop what you're doing, we're starting all over. We're going to start with this clean slate where everyone's doing this Scrum plus one or two things and that's it. So that's where I see as a big failure of at least what I've been involved with and some of my colleagues.
All right. Thanks for sharing. I'll share what mine. I have historically gone to a company and I've thought, right, this worked for me before. I'm gonna do that again. So I've gone in with my own agenda, with my own. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna use these scaling principles and things like that. And rather than tailor it to the needs of the company and the people, I've gone in with my own agenda and pushed what I knew worked, rather than tailor it to the situation. It's something I very much don't do now. A lesson I've very much learned. Nowadays, I'm more inclined to go and listen, understand the situation, and then help that company discover what works for them. And that if that borrows from multiple frameworks, whether it's if they want to start with Scrum and then adjust accordingly, or start with Kanban. I'm very much agile agnostic these days, and I'm very much going without any agenda whatsoever. I don't mind which framework they use, because I don't mind. I'm outcome focused. How about you, Miguel?
Yeah, I don't have very many failures to report really that are relevant, because with the whole iteration process with how Scrum and Kanban and things allows you to do, it sort of prevents quite a lot of failures. And as I've mentioned, because I do quite a lot of small experiments, again, that's a way around failure. So I've learned that over the years rather opposed to sort of failing. It was just a question of just trying it, and it worked, and I've just kept doing it, and it's what everybody says, keep doing it. So yeah, it's not, not really a failure.
Okay.
But yeah.
Mary.
Yeah. So recently, I volunteered to be part of a collaborative tools working group at work. And so then in the first meeting, they asked for somebody to run the working group. So I said I would. So I decided I would act as a Scrum Master and, get the team to work collaboratively to decide what we were going to do to help, our bigger business area to work more collaboratively. Sorry, it's really echoing. I don't know if you could go mute, Chris, if it's you. I don't know. Yeah, that's better. But the only tool we had available to ourselves at the time was Confluence. So I was busy creating backlogs. I was busy being, the product owner, the Scrum Master, and then I was doing most of the activities as well. So as much as I was trying to encourage people to say, put stuff on the backlog this week, okay, we're going to, what is our goal? What is our vision? So we'd get a goal for a 2-week sprint. So I was trying to, kind of like you said, trying to push the idea of we're going to do a 2-week sprint. We're just going to do some, it was more admin activities, if you will, rather than delivering software, but to get us where we, to achieve a certain thing. And it just, I then started doing retrospectives. And whenever I'd say, what went well or what didn't go well, they'd always say, well, we shouldn't leave everything to Mary Ellen to do. We should do more work. But then, people weren't finding time in their day to do this because it was off the side of the desk. But I just felt like I was trying to push kind of using kind of Scrum. And I was supposed to be acting as the Scrum Master, but I was also acting as product owner and member of the team. So, yeah, we're kind of reorganizing because a lot of people have dropped out with homeschooling and whatnot. So I've got to, when the new group comes in, kind of agree how we're going to move forward.
Sure. All right, thanks for sharing, everyone. So I'm conscious of time. We've got a couple more questions to go through. So if we go to the bottom left quadrant of this board now, we've got what pitfalls might we hit ahead of our destination time? So again, 20 years in the future, what might the Agile community need to overcome to achieve success, and who or what might be the nemesis getting in our way, preventing it from happening? So again, time to think individually, and then we'll have a discussion about it. Will be our own nemesis, our own nemesises. Lots of good things coming out here. So fear, ego, grandstanding peacocks. I'd love to have someone explain what they mean by that.
Yeah, I'll do that. I put that one down. Basically, people just speaking for the sake of it, saying I'm more agile than you, I know more than you, and just not being really tolerant or respectful of one another. feeling that their voice is the most important in the room. I'm seeing a lot of evidence of that in the coaching world these days.
Yeah, I was about to say we see that. I see that currently. There's kind of a, you're not following this on the Agile Manifesto, so therefore you're not agile enough, or something to that effect. And rather than it being this empathetic view as, or have you done this, or you could try this, it's kind of a criticism. It's a bit of one-upsmanship, to be honest. But yeah, there's definitely a bit of that out there. Management relinquishing power. Yeah, it's this. There's a lot of people talking the autonomy talk, but actually letting go. Death by PowerPoint, or if we can move away from PowerPoint, my aspiration, any workshop, any session I lead or involved in is interaction, it's talking, it's discussion. I am, in some of the companies I work with, we've gone from having these tech town halls, which is just PowerPoint slides presented at people, and me suggesting, well, let's make it interactive, let's have a discussion, let's bring people into it, and they're always far more engaging as a result. Otherwise people just switch off and they're kind of half there and they're doing some other task anyway. You want people involved in it. They want to feel like they have a voice rather than they're just being talked at. So I love Agile games. Agile games are my favourite method of teaching a new concept. I love the quote, if you tell someone something, they'll forget. If you teach them something, they may remember, but if you involve them, they'll learn. I think it's attributed to Benjamin Franklin. Possibly...
it was Benjamin Franklin. I actually put that on a cover letter recently.
It's brilliant. I think it's it may be borrowed subtext wise from Confucius or something like that years and years ago, but something along those lines. What else have we got? Scaling versus descaling. Tools take over and tech meaning less human contact.
That was me again. Sorry, that's what I mean by remote working, that kind of thing. I've noticed that there's a massive emphasis on like ADO boards, like Azure DevOps and things, about capturing all this information. Same thing with Mural, although we're interactive, it's revolving totally around the tech, and I think that's obviously due to the fault of the situation that we're in with coronavirus. But I'm wondering if now remote working becomes quite standardized and possibly the norm in a few years down the line, especially at the future bit at this point. I'm wondering, because of the lack of it, that we're going to be solely reliant upon tech rather opposed to have that kind of human contact, that human thing, having a genuine conversation that will be hiding behind avatars rather than opposed to actually the physical contact, the water cooler moments, the who wants a coffee, who wants a brew, those kind of things, that is where that peer-to-peer contact, I think, might be lost. And I'm wondering if we're going to miss a trick if we let go of that before we're actually ready. It's just food for thought.
I think it's extremely valid. I think I observe a lot of situations where people just won't go on camera. And to me, I've said for a while now that you can tell if a team's happy by how much they laugh. But I would say right now, you can tell a team's happy by how often they go on camera. If you've got lots of people hiding behind a camera, odds are there's not a lot of psychological safety. They're probably not particularly pleased or happy. And obviously there's lots of reasons why someone might not be on camera. They could be, you don't know what their living situation is. They might have kids running around. They might have an elderly parent they're looking after. There's all sorts of reasons for it. And I've never been someone to enforce use of camera. I always encourage it. I always lead by example. I always get on there myself and do something silly, and that usually eases the situation. But that's my style for it. But you're absolutely right. We've lost a lot of those moments for those conversations that you have. You'd walk into an office at the start of the day and you'd ask someone how their evening was, and you'd have a little chat before you even start with your laptop, and you might go grab a coffee and you'd speak to someone way there, and then there'd be a channel to a meeting room and so on and so forth. There's lots of opportunities for conversations. And in this remote world, it can feel like meeting. And it's one of the reasons why any meeting I tend to facilitate is always starting with the first 5 minutes is completely non-work chat focus. It's like icebreaker questions. It's something silly like, show me something you've got in your office and tell a story about it. And you've had random things come out from that. There's what animal legs we have and why. If you have any animal legs from any other animal in the entire kingdom. There's just anything you can do, basically, just to start a conversation and get people interacting. I did it recently with team that have been working together for a while, and we ended up talking about video games, and as a consequence of that, two guys realised they both played the same video game and arranged to play that game together that evening after work. And it was just like they hadn't had that conversation because it was just meeting. It's strange. I think we need to build that social interaction time into our working lives again, especially with how remote we are.
I agree. Can I just add to that? So something that's just on the flip side of that is that management by tools. I think that's becoming a big thing as well. They see it as transparency, so that they can go onto the tool at any point and see what's going on, as opposed to having a conversation with someone and actually finding out what's really going on in the project. And I think that worries me a lot. That people are just saying, okay, cool, let's find another way to manage people, and let's use Jira to do it.
Yeah, I really relate to that, Jess, especially with the workplace practices now, where there's software loaded through their servers onto your computer, taking pictures of you every 5 minutes or something to make sure you're actually doing the work. That lack of trust. But I think eventually that may disappear as they find out that people actually not having the commute and working from home, they're quite comfortable, and they actually are more productive than actually being in the office. I mean, if you think about how many hours a day less we are wasting being non-productive getting to the office. 3 hours commute a day is quite normal for most people. An hour and a half that way, an hour and a half back. Sometimes on the train, if you're going by train or car, you can't work because people around you, what you're working on is confidential. Where at home, you're on the laptop at 9 o'clock, much more rested, or 8 o'clock, depending on what you're doing, and you can get stuck into it without a problem. But then again, you've got the opposite side, which is the mental health issue. But yeah, I think as time goes on, we might have trust. But I do agree with you, Jess. I think the privacy issue is a problem, and it comes from the tech source of how our life is completely revolving around a laptop, a camera, and the mic and speakers on that laptop.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I don't know.
What are your thoughts, Frank? Haven't heard from you for a while.
I agree with what's been said.
Okay. I personally feel like there is a place for offices. Some people prefer to go into office, and that's fine. That's their preference. It is a nice way to break up a week from the monotony of Groundhog Day, wake up, work, rinse, repeat. I do think offices will more likely become these hot desk-esque spaces where people can choose to go in. They might be primarily used for specific collaborative meetings, but the majority of work will be remotely or wherever you are. And then if you are a person who prefers to go into an office, then you can do, and that's what works for you.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Last question then. So let's wrap this up. 20 years from now, what investments have we made to make our lives easier? What investments have we made in our health, mental or otherwise? So I like to bring this sort of thing in, because I think these are the sort of questions that are forgotten in retrospectives. It's all about work, but what about your mental health? What about your physical health? What can we do to change things there, make ourselves more productive? So again, 20 years from now, what changes do you see in your personal life that will help you make your life easier? What investments have you made mentally, health, otherwise? Yeah, moving up from cities, I think we're really starting to see that, aren't we? In fact, there's a lot of companies out there. Spotify recently announced that they have allowed anyone to work remotely, and they will maintain existing salaries. So even if you're a San Francisco salaried person and you're working elsewhere, you still get paid that, and you're allowed to work remotely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I read an article the other day that HR people are already discussing that the fact that people are working from home, we should pay them less.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So Yeah, right. You can see what I feel about it.
Just because you're not physically in a certain location, does that mean that the value you bring to the table has changed? Right, your years of experience that you bring to the table, that doesn't change based on location.
No, it probably adds extra value through the points that I've mentioned before about that less commuting, that kind of thing. As I put here, tech creep could be an issue opposite of what I said above, which is sort of a work-life balance, easy to attain. It means that you're switched on constantly. You're on your phone. You're easily, contacted and things. So these things could be an issue.
I think we're moving to a situation where people are going to need digital detoxes, right? People are addicted to having a phone. I know. You can walk into a restaurant and you can see couples just sat there opposite each other on their phone. You see groups of people walking together on their phone in the park, walking past, just looking at their phone. They might be playing Pokemon Go, sure, but there's lots of examples of it. I've got into the habit of, in the past, just spending an hour time syncing on my phone before going to sleep while lying in bed. And you just think, well, how unproductive is that? And then one of the first things you do when you wake up in the morning, look at your phone, look at notifications and messages. It's just, we're constantly switched on. So I'm actively trying to switch off from that and reduce my screen time, personally.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good point. I've heard before about the detox programs away from phones and stuff like that. I suppose the agile question is how do we go about getting away from our phones? What can we do in our lives to not be so dependent upon phones? And it's really quite a tricky one, because it really gets you like a spider web. Once it's got you and your whole life is around it, your phone.
Well, that's the problem, right? Not right now. If you lose your phone, some people, their phone is their wallet, because they've got their cards attached to it. They've got all their bank cards digitally inside it. You know, I lost my phone not long ago in a taxi in Dubai, right? Left in a taxi, and then realised, okay, now what do? I had to go into the hotel I'd gone to, get them to check the camera to see what the registration plate was, get them to call up that company, and then get that guy, and then eventually got hold of him and had to bring it back. But for an hour, I was just like, and if I didn't have it, I was meant to be flying back that same day. If I didn't have it, it was just going to be a nightmare. You
probably had already checked in on your phone, and you probably had your boarding card on your phone. And
exactly, that's the problem. Everything rolls on your phone these days. If you lose it, making work more fun. I love this one because it's something I'm a huge believer in. It's why I do games. It's why I do icebreakers. It's why I make sessions involving and interactive. You can make time for fun with a little bit of creativity if you have that mindset. It's why I do themed retrospectives. You know? A lot of teams can get into the habit of just doing, what did you do last time? What are you going to do next time? What went well? What didn't go well? And it can become very stale and boring, and you can switch off and disengage as a result. But just a little bit of creativity, trying a different style, just embracing that experiment often pays off really well. So making time for fun, so on board with that.
Yeah, I think people have psychological safety in fun, and they sort of let go of inhibitions a little bit more, and I think that sort of opens up the divergent thinking a little bit and the growth mindset, and I think people are more receptive to what happens. Yeah.
Well, if you guys like Agile games, I lead an Agile gaming arcade every 2 weeks. The way it works is people come along and there's 6 games on offer, and people can self-select which game they want to play, and then we just play them, and they're always based around teaching certain Agile concepts. You're welcome to come along.
That's awesome. Thanks, Chris.
That's great, Chris. Can you drop a link in the...
Is it in Meetup or
It's a Meetup, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'll drop a link. It's called the Agile Arcade Serious Gaming Group.
Yeah, because I first came across you probably about this time last year, actually. You were doing some Agile fun game, something. I don't know, it might have even been a little bit further behind. It was a Halloween thing anyway that I caught on LinkedIn. That's where I came across you originally. And I thought, yeah, it might have been that.
Probably
Yeah.
that one. What else have we got? Meet up with work people for not work. Okay, what do we mean by that?
well,
That's a good one.
yeah, I said that one because I'm thinking if I never go into London again, locally, it's not quite the kind of diverse set of people that I meet when I go to work.
Sure.
When I go up into London. And I think I will miss that,
Okay.
And I've become friends with some of those people and done, you might go out after work or you might, become friends and do other things with them. But you're not going to have that exposure if nobody goes in the office on a regular basis.
Okay.
I learned we used to have activities once a quarter. A couple of years ago, we went wakeboarding.
Oh, awesome.
And then this past summer, I went wakeboarding every week with the Barclays Wakeboarding Club.
Very cool.
That's so cool.
So at the ripe old age of whatever I am, But it's not something, if we're all just working from home, that I think we'd ever do. And I wouldn't get to know the same kind of diverse group of people on a different level other than just, looking at technical designs or something.
And the other one that I like is engage with different people and expand your minds. To me, this is, or and correct me if I'm wrong, is it about escaping the echo chamber?
100%. 100%.
I love this in such a big way. I think we're so often just speak to people we're comfortable with, the same people over and over, and therefore your perceptions aren't challenged. I'm often thinking, how can I escape my echo chamber? How can I, what meetups can I go to that aren't particularly supporting a worldview I believe in, or is it non-agile focused? Can I learn something from that? And I'm always trying to connect with people that aren't perhaps in the agile arena as well, just so I can be exposed to different content. Because if you are just, especially these algorithms on the networks we're using these days, we're just exposed to the same things over and over, and just reinforces our own view and doesn't challenge us enough.
Absolutely.
So there could definitely be more of that. Setting boundaries around work and home. I think this probably comes into what we were saying a little bit earlier about that digital detox and things like that. I actually think if we're moving to a model where the majority of people are remote to some extent nowadays, then there's no need to have your work email or anything like that on your mobile phone anymore. I think it should be separate entirely. And that could perhaps be one of the boundaries.
I mean, I find that difficult. I mean, like personally for me, when I go on holiday, I try and disconnect completely and say, like, you know what, guys, whoever's standing in for me at that time, they've got my number, they can give me a call, but anyone else, I'm not going to be checking mail, I'm not going to be answering my phone, so don't try. But it's one of those things, like working remotely, you tend to sit there at 8 o'clock at night and then start checking your emails, and it's just, you have to make that mind shift of,
or let me just finish this presentation, or let me just finish this, whatever I'm doing there.
And we just need to make that conscious decision to be present wherever we are. So if it's home time, spend time at home and put your mind there and spend time with your family and actually concentrate on what's going on, not just be...
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be more learnings from many people as to how to separate those two things. So I know I've seen at the moment that the physical act of closing a door between where you work and where the rest of your house is can be a powerful psychological way of saying, hey, that's done now, I'm moving to a separate room, that's work life, that's home life. Obviously not everyone has that luxury, everyone's got a separate study, but that some people are able to mimic that by, I don't know, closing a laptop and putting it in a box or something like that. There are ways around it. I think we're going to learn a lot more techniques for separating work and home, because I remember when I first started working from home, it was definitely, I can wake up and I can do it from bed, that's great. And then over the years you go, that's actually really dysfunctional behaviour, I shouldn't be doing that. And now I wake up, I get dressed, I go for a walk, there are things I do that make it feel like I'm going to work rather than I'm just waking up and switching a laptop on.
I think one of the things that I learned with my teams is to try and I don't want to use the word enforce, but basically enforce a break. So I found that some of them, they were online at various times in the evening, and it would be like, guys, stop now, and you'd have someone who's just having a bad day, and it'd be like, stop, close your laptop. Yes, you're already at home, you can't go anywhere, but go for a walk. Close your laptop, go for a walk. Don't.
One of the things I do is, again, it's easier in warm times, but I started this thing called the Walk With Me experiment. It was just a Slack channel, and the way it was like you just meet up with someone else that perhaps you wouldn't usually interact with, and just walk and talk with them. And that gets you both out for a walk. It gets you talking to people you perhaps don't talk to, and that gets you away from the desk.
That's really cool. I really like that.
I think we've run short of time, so I don't want to hold you guys for too long. But what I would like to do is just ask for any feedback you have. Obviously, we had a slightly more intimate event than have had in the past, but there's a section on here, lots of little shooting stars. So if you want to share on the left-hand side, you've got kind of a gold color. How could this session have been more useful for you? If you double-click inside the stars, you can share your thoughts. The blue ones represent what you liked or disliked about the session, and the bright yellow ones are, if you had one wish about the session, it would be. So if you wouldn't mind sharing your thoughts, I'd appreciate it.
Is that on Miro or is it on this?
It's inside Miro. So if you,
I was looking in there.
I brought everyone to the place where it is. It's like a starry background with lots of stars on it, lots of shooting stars. Sort of a wish upon a star scenario. I like to try and mix up styles of capturing feedback rather than, I did a wishing well recently and all sorts of things like that. So always keen to adjust how these things are going to make sure they're as valuable as they can be for people.
Oh dear, what have I done?
Make sure you only invite people who know how to use Miro, because I'm still not.
Well, that would be very disinclusive, wouldn't it? And if we go back to what the Agile Manifesto says, individuals and interactions over processes and tools, I'd rather bring people together and have a conversation than focus on the fact that they can use a tool.
I know, I was teasing, but I'm a bit thicker skinned than that. But where am I finding these stars? I'm sorry.
Hold on. They are here.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, if you double click inside any of these stars, you should be able to type. I can see someone's put continue. They want a longer discussion or a longer session.
Yep.
Yeah, that was me.
Well, we probably don't do enough of this a wider community, so I'm always a fan of it.
Clubhouse. That's a good place to go. Have you heard of it?
I have, but it's iPhone only, iOS only, and I'm an Android man.
Ah, you're missing out then.
It's immediately ruled me out. I've had lots of people say, "Hey, you should come along. We want you to be involved in our Clubhouse." I was like, well, I can't because it's Android. It's iPhone only. So when they evolve and get with the times and they introduce to a decent operating system, then yeah, I'll probably get involved.
I guess you're not an Apple fan though.
I used it several years ago. I think I had an Apple iPhone 3GS, and I've probably got the box somewhere in my study. But then after that, I went to Android, and I've never looked back since.
Okay.
I didn't like that they were enforcing proprietary use and things like that, whereas Android's a bit more open.
Yeah.
Most of my friends are iPhone users, so I don't mind.
Yeah. No, I've used it. I've used Apple all the way back from when they were the LC1s and things like that. So computers always, and
yeah,
super stable. Never had a problem with them.
Okay.
So
there's my 3GS box right there.
Yeah.
Why I've got this, I don't know.
Might be worth something one day.
Mate, the iPhone's actually still in there.
Yeah. My iPhone, my 3G phone's used to death.
Okay, I mean, still got an iPhone. This is it to my
to your TV.
Yeah, to my television.
Yeah, they're massive now, aren't they, the phones?
Yeah, that's a Note 20, so it's one of the bigger ones anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, I wrote a blog a few years ago saying that iPads would be, make laptops obsolete, in the future, that we're using them more and more as a laptop rather opposed to just something to just tap a few text messages. Yeah, I think in a few years' time the phone will probably supersede that, and we'll be doing everything on the phone.
By the looks of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Like my Android phone, I think it's probably got more operating power than most laptops. It's got like more RAM than a lot of laptops. It's mad. It's mad.
Yeah. I mean, I've got computers away. You know, my first working computer was only 2 gigabyte hard drive. 2 gigabytes. You know, I mean, that's a proper working machine as well.
Yeah.
Now it's, you know, you're up to a terabyte on a telephone now, something like that.
Yeah.
Wasn't the first computer like 2 megs?
I have got one more meetup group for you guys. There's another one I host, one that's all about virtual agility. And the plan, I've hosted a few workshops on that around Miro and running remote retrospectives and things like that. But that's another meetup group that I'm planning to have guest speakers on. It's going to be like this, community discussions, interactive sessions. So again, if that's something of interest to you, then join that and look out for future events.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
All right.
Let's see.
Pleasure to
I've joined the other
guys.
group already. So let's see what this one is. It's just a question of time now. I'm so involved with Clubhouse stuff and other things with work, and you know, it's just finding the time for it all.
Sure.
It's all fantastic content. It's all really great. But it's just there's so many conflicting things, and
Yeah.
you know that this is the problem of what's happening now because it's so tech has allowed it so accessible.
Yeah.
That you're pulled in so many different ways that there's so much stuff
Yeah.
on. It's almost like it's quality noise really if you get in the right circles, but it's just conflicting all the time.
Yeah.
And it's a real shit.
Particularly right now, the Agile 20 Reflect event's going on, and there's so many events in parallel
Yeah.
that it's like, how do I choose which one to go to, right? It's a good option to have. I think if I was to go back a year and a half, you know, I need to go to a meetup, it'd be, do I travel into London? Do I go to Southampton, right? There wasn't anyone really close to me, so I'd have to spend time getting there, and it would conflict with some of my hobbies and things like that, so yeah. Right, it's been an absolute pleasure hosting you guys. Thank you for joining. Thanks for your interaction, and I hope to meet you again at another event soon.